راديو إدماج.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We are very pleased and honored to receive today Dr. Katherine Engel, who came all the way from Aix-en-Provence University, where she teaches. She is a university professor, and she's also in charge of sister cities Casablanca, Chicago, and sister cities in general, I would say, international social work section, I would say, of the or department of the sister cities international programs. And we had the privilege, also of meeting her in her capacity as a person in charge of social work and I would say community organizer, and now as a university professor. And we invited her, and she accepted the invitation, and we thank her so much for that, to participate in this cultural encounter for cultural diversity. It's a cultural week organized by the commune of Sidi Baliout, which started on the 16th of May until the 25th, and in which sister cities Casablanca, Chicago, and sister cities Africa, and of course the Idmaj Foundation for Development have participated profoundly in this program and organized several activities and 2 or 3 major roundtables as well. Well, the day before yesterday, we had a roundtable on the sister cities Casablanca, Chicago partnership, and the implication of vote population of our 2 cities, and the programs they have already undertaken in the past, present activities and future or potential, I would say, program and project that we are planning to do in the future in order to enhance this partnership and reinforce the relationship between the United States and Morocco, mainly between the people of the United States and the people of Morocco, and precisely between the inhabitants of Casablanca and inhabitants of Chicago. It's a program that was so rich, diversified, and had a great impact on both cities. And now Casablanca is known in Chicago, and Chicago is pretty much known, in Casablanca. So, and this is the aim and objective, of this partnership. As you know, Sister Cities program, which was created by President Eisenhower in 1956. And it was the title that was given to it, was people-to-people diplomacy, and the main objectives, were to promote peace and understanding, mutual respect and cooperation. We are happy to have you, Dr. Katherine Engel, here in Morocco. This is your first visit in Morocco, right?
It's my first. I'm so happy to be here finally.
Okay, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, to our audience, our listeners?
All right. Well, I was a university professor in Chicago. I just retired, but I don't want to use the retired word because I'm not retired. But after 41 years at one university, I retired for that job only. And there I had the opportunity to lead many different compelling programs. I was the associate director and director of our in-house training clinic, so that trained our PhD psychologists in how to be therapists. And then for the last 20 years, I was the director of our program in applied psychology, which was a program that linked with I built it out to include 350 of the very best nonprofits, or what in Casablanca you would call an association, agencies for our students to be trained and have internships and really contribute as researchers and people who help program evaluation. So it was a strong partnership between the community and between the university. The agencies gave our students a chance to be trained, and they were gold mines full of data, and we could bring and share the resources of the university to uplift agencies, to bring them interns who were eager to work hard and be trained, and also, of course, to do research and help with evaluation. While I was doing that, I got recruited from Chicago Sister Cities to originally be in charge, co-chair the exchanges between Chicago and Paris. So I started 20 years ago with the social service exchanges with Paris, and I was leading those exchanges between the leaders. And because of those, I formed an MOU with the social services of Paris to bring my students over. So since 2015, we also had students on contracted internships in the social services. So I had a long, long history with Paris and loved the social service exchanges, really valued so much how everyone benefits, how everyone's minds are open. Our goal is to share best practices, so for everyone to learn something new from each other, and and also to see how much the social service exchanges were valued. The French government knighted me for this, so that's quite an honor for someone working in the sector of the social services. And then about 10 years ago, Chicago Sister Cities asked me to co-chair the steering committee. The steering committee is the committee that looks at all of our social service exchanges. We have 10 cities now, and take that over, which is when I got involved with knowing and supporting Casablanca. And then I inherited temporarily, because I don't have Arabic, so I'm trying to recruit for you a very good co-chair of the Casablanca Social Services Exchange, but I'm doing that to support that now. And I'm so honored you invited me here, because of all the many things I've done, I think I enjoy the international work more than anything, just because of how much it opens everyone's opportunities.
This is a very rich, background, all the great work that you're doing. I wonder why I have excellent students, because they have an excellent, professor. There's a question that actually a lot of people ask, and especially when I talk about Sister Cities program and its goals and aims, and that it's to promote peace and understanding. And when I say peace, they say, how come there are a lot of wars, and the conflicts, everywhere. We know that the idea came when Eisenhower, as many other leaders thought that one of the main reasons for conflicts and for wars, is actually the misunderstanding between the people. So how come, now, since 56, and today we are in 2024, there are conflicts, everywhere. There are wars, in different regions of the globe. How do you see that, and how do you think that Sister Cities international programs, could find a remedy to that, and reduce all these conflicts?
Well, I think what's unique about Sister Cities and being a citizen diplomat is we're nonpartisan. Sister Cities is a nonpartisan organization, so we can really connect with people one person at a time. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about doing this work, the exchange, both with the professionals and with the students, we're now developing internships for professionals for the first time, is I think people have misconceptions about one another. And it's only when you actually have that person-to-person friendship and professional relationship, when you visit the other country, when you know people and learn about them, as we talked about last night in our social service problems. We all have the same problems, and we have so much to learn from each other, and people are more alike than they're different. And I think that's a unique place that Sister Cities can help, because we try to get as many people involved in those exchanges and the ability to travel. That's why we're so excited to be inviting a delegation of the social services to Chicago, because I think it's just a real opportunity to break stereotypes, especially in this day and age where so much misinformation and false information is spread by fake news or the internet, for people to get good relationships with people from other cultures. It's more necessary than ever.
No, absolutely. I always say that technology is not going to replace and will never replace, person-to-person, contact. When there are these barriers, and I gave the example yesterday, how people are insulting each other because they're using social media, and they just they don't see the person, don't even know those people, and they insult them, and vice versa. So this, had they known them, or met them, probably, they would think differently, and they would change, their mindset. Can we say, like, maybe if we didn't have, programs as, such as Sister Cities International programs, that the world condition could have been worse?
Well, I think we need more of our programs. Certainly, we need more.
Actually, I try to encourage this, because I always say that there's nothing that can replace, people-to-people diplomacy, right, and person-to-person, contact, and that, the people-to-people diplomacy can actually make, some of the decision makers, change their minds about their policies, because the people, can actually be your advocate, I take the example, I tell them all, now we're being used to the French, methodology in politics in our government, with governments, and politicians with politicians. But like with the United States, you have to influence the Congress, the senators, the congressmen. And your congressman in your district or in your city, can actually, if he knows more about, what we do and who we are, like the Moroccans, knows a little bit about our culture, about traditions and customs, etc., probably, would defend our cause, always, this is, I say it, especially, when we talk about the Moroccan Sahara, when we freed it, from the occupiers, and everybody's saying, it should be governed, but the people can do a lot of what they call the parallel, diplomacy. We call it people-to-people diplomacy, because we can transmit, the message, probably, as well as the government, but deeper, because we go to the people, and the people who are, if we do, like, for instance, we are talking about your students who are going to become, politicians tomorrow, the mayors or probably congressmen or congresswomen, and they will be decision makers, so they can actually have an influence on that. Well, I believe in people-to-people diplomacy, and one of its advocates. I was actually a member of the board of Sister Cities International in Washington, D.C. from, I think, 2006 to 2009, and met a lot of people from different countries, from the whole world, especially in those annual conferences and congresses. Now, we are preparing, you came here first, and following our invitation. We are so thankful, grateful, to you for accepting our invitation to participate in this event that took place in Sidi Bouliout Cultural Complex. And there was a nice gathering yesterday. Can you tell us something about it and what you have talked about to the people and the rich, actually information that you had given us?
It's hard to pick what to talk about. It was really hard to decide what to share, because I'm so passionate about all the work I've done. But I really focused on the exchange the conference. All the cities have been giving exchanges back and forth in the social services, one at a time with the city, but on the steering committee, which is comprised of the co-chairs of all those cities, we learned that I wanted to know what was going on in Casablanca, even though I was doing Paris, and someone from Durban wanted to learn from Casablanca. And so we were talking to one another, but our delegates didn't get that opportunity. So in 2017, we talked about, that was the first time we invited you on a delegation, where that time we had 9 cities together, seven, and this time we're going to have 10 cities together. And that was the first time we convened a conference with all of our delegates together, seeing the best social services of Chicago. But actually the conference isn't us as Americans talking. Each city gets equal time on the stage as a keynote speaker to teach all the other delegates in the room what's the best practice of the city. And then the afternoon of the conference, we go into breakout rooms by specialty. So we had 5 special topics, and again, each city could divide their delegates up by an area of specialization so they could get into deep conversations with one another about best practices. And we found that just so much more rewarding. People told us how very much they enjoyed interacting with each other, and we evaluated them. I did some in real-time research, and actually had people fill out at their tabletops forms for me before and after the conference so we could document how much our delegates changed. So I think that we learned so much from that. We want to do it again. We wanted to do it better, of course, and so we decided to do it once every 5 years.
It's really great because, yes, we participated in the first one, which was in 2017. I would like to take advantage of this sitting and this interview, actually to give a tribute to a great person, late Shonda King, who actually sacrificed her whole life, in service of humanity and in to help others. And she died at an early age, a young age. Well, we miss her dearly, and we think about her, all the time. It is very important, to notice here that in these meetings, of course, we learn, as you said, about each other's work and best practices, experiences, in different fields. We do a lot of interesting and rich exchanges, but also we have a lot of visits. Mm-hmm. And that are very important. And what I want to mention here to our listeners is that you do not show us only the good side of the city, and any city, because I participated in the one in Chicago and in the one in Hamburg, and many other places, and it's we also go to the underserved areas, where there's a lot of problems and a lot of conflicts, a lot of like in Chicago, the gang, problem, that actually hurting, the whole city and making a big problem, to everyone. We see all these, and we see all these headaches, that you suffer from, but also we learn about how you are dealing with them and what solutions have you found or trying to find. And when we talk about it afterwards, we get ideas, from each other, and we might find, good solutions from other people. So I tell them, yesterday I mentioned that, several times, that don't think, that because the United States, for instance, or Germany or whatever, they are ahead of us, in social work, that we have nothing to give, and we only import. No, we have something, also to export, and we have something, also to give. As a matter of fact, they all wanted, to have, they were impressed by IDMAJ, and they wanted actually to implement the program of IDMAJ in different, areas in Chicago, especially the south of Chicago. They wanted to do that in Germany. And we were asked, to go to Tanzania as well for that. So that's why, if you could collaborate a little bit about on that, how you join the workshops and
the city,
with the visits, and how important the visits are.
It's so difficult because we have so many good agencies in Chicago. The hardest part of the steering committee's job, my job, and that's what I'm leaving for all these Zoom meetings I'm having while I'm here in Casablanca, is agreeing and finding consensus on where we will have you visit. Because, and I know I'm so happy your delegation that's joining us at the end of June will have more time to visit extra visits. But like you said, this isn't a tourism visit. You're not visiting, we don't go to each other's fancy neighborhoods because that's not where the social services are needed most. We carefully are selecting and curating a list of visits that are in our most challenged neighborhoods because that's where the most important service agencies exist, and it's people that work every day in the most under-resourced neighborhoods. So planning for the conference we're inviting you to, which is the exciting part that I'm doing as my project I've been planning from Aix-en-Provence. This was a one-semester professorship for me, which I love, but it actually gave me a chance to really devote myself totally to planning this conference, and we're really curating the very best practices Chicago has to offer. But that said, we do this and we all practice cultural humility. Chicago isn't there to fix or give our services. We learn when we go to every other country as much from them, and all the cities are treated as equal stakeholders. We empower and respect everyone. Every city comes with cultural humility, and even when a practice is shared, something from Casablanca might be adapted in Chicago to fit our culture, just as something you learn from us might need to be changed a bit to fit the culture here. I'll give you a silly small example, but in Paris, every homeless person, even if they don't yet have a shelter, if they're living on the streets, gets a haircut. And it's not just for employability, but of course it helps with that, but it's for self-esteem and confidence, and there's no way in a Chicago budget with the American mindset we would be writing into our budgets, hairstylists. But my students learned that, and they went around to all the barbershops and hairstylists in the neighborhoods and were able to get free haircuts donated. So what we learned is never necessarily imported in exactly the same way, but we find ways to see what someone else is doing and saying, that's a great idea. How can we add that? How can we add something to our program?
That's a very good example. It's not a silly example, it's a very good example. But it just, I thought while you were talking, I said to myself, is that why they created hippism? And they, because the barbers were not given free haircuts, so they decided, to grow their hair, and hippism, started in the United States. No, I'm just. But cultural humility.
Yeah.
That's an important word to say, and the thing that people should know that nothing is hidden. Right. Nothing is hidden. We're not trying to give a false image of who we are. I remember in 2017 we were invited to different homes in different neighborhoods. And I mentioned to them, in one of the meetings, a problem of segregation and all that. They said, no segregation in Chicago, there is nothing. But when we visited, they said, this is the Italian headquarters. This is a neighborhood, for Mexicans. This is, for Cubans. What do you call that? when you have,
Clearly in our history there was segregation, and that's a problem. And so that's the negative, and some of those histories remain in neighborhoods. But there's another upside to that, and it's the story of immigration. So many, as people, there are what used to be the Bohemian neighborhood where Czech was spoken in Pilsen, which is why I got the name Pilsen, is now a Mexican-American neighborhood where you hear only Spanish spoken in the streets, and all the food and the bakeries are Mexican food. And so the upside to all of our ethnic neighborhoods is, I think, one thing that's very unique about the United States is we don't try to make everybody U.S. or have them blend into a culture. People become U.S. citizens and they learn our language, but we very much celebrate people retaining their culture. So there is segregation, but there's also a lot of choice. The upside to this is new immigrants from Syria or new immigrants from a country in Latin America or Poland or the Ukrainians love living. I mean, Ukrainian villages, people enjoy moving to and being welcomed in a neighborhood where their food and language is familiar. So, you know, it's not all negative. There's a positive side where we're a sanctuary city. Chicago, that means we welcome everyone. Sanctuary cities turn no one away. You don't have to have papers in Chicago to get health care or education or social services. I'm sure you've seen in the news that governor of a certain state in the southern part of America keeps busing their immigrants to us because of our welcomingness. So I think the fabric of Chicago, although the segregation history is a negative, the current fabric of all the tiny ethnic neighborhoods, most people who live there now experience it as a celebration of differences, with people loving to, many people choosing to, by choice, live in a neighborhood where their food and language is cherished. We have in our social services a coalition of agencies that support immigrants and refugees. And this coalition publishes all the languages their staff speak. So at any given moment, we have 200 agencies where someone from Afghanistan can have their language and someone from Syria can have their language, and someone from Haiti has Creole. And so, you know, an upside to the beautiful patchwork quilt of all these lovely ethnic neighborhoods is also that our social service agencies that are embedded in each neighborhood culturally tailor their services.
I like that expression you said, you know, that it's a celebration of differences. Yeah. As long as, you know, there are no conflicts, you know, or you are not obliged, you know, to live in a certain neighborhood because, you know, you ethnically, you know, you're different and therefore, you know, so it's by choice.
It's by choice.
By choice, and people, when they come, especially, and we can say that Chicago is also a city of immigrants.
Yes, very much.
Because, you know, you have it's like Casablanca. I mean, Casablanca, there are a few people who are from Casablanca who are Casablancais.
Right.
I mean, the rest, they came from all over. I mean, I came from Salé, for instance, you know, so a lot of, many people, you know, actually immigrated, you know, to Casablanca because it's the largest city, economic, you know, hub, you know, of the country, and a lot of opportunities. So, they, you know, they come here and live here and to have a better life. So it's, I mean, I think Chicago is similar. And that's why we have similarities, you know, between the two cities, and that's why we are sisters.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact. And we always talk about, you know, how similar, you know, you talk about similarities, you know, there a while ago. And the day before yesterday, when I said, you know, that there are 46%, you know, illiterate in Chicago, they didn't believe me. Would you elaborate on that? You know, what's the rate of illiteracy because of this immigration, you know?
Oh, my goodness. I should have looked that up. I don't want to be quoted because I'm not exactly sure I know. What I do know is we really are working hard with children. And so children, since everyone is welcomed in our schools and you don't have to have papers and education, we can really sort of eradicate that with the children in Chicago. And we're really strong about keeping people in school and making sure they don't drop out and they finish. I think what I'll give you I can talk about programs I know that have worked really well, but I don't quote me on a statistic because I'm not sure I'm accurate right now. What I do know is the programs that are most successful helping parents catch up with the literacy often empower parents or teach mothers ways to help and increase their child's literacy. Because if a mother can't read or write, even in her home language, whatever her native language is, and if we sort of force her into a GED or make her feel ashamed of that, we're going to lose her. She's not going to come into the school. But our programs are teaching beautiful things like how mothers can make picture books with their children when the children are very young, before the children are old enough to read. And then the mother tells the story verbally, does oral storytelling with the child as the child draws pictures. And as she does that, of course, she's increasing her child's literacy, her child's language development by oral storytelling. And when we create these positive, the YWCA has done this, and many other, our YWCA Regional Center in Chicago trains all, for example, the YWCAs in the entire Midwest. This early storytelling with these mothers, then of course the mothers are motivated to come to the center because they're feeling valued and they're good at this. And so then including literacy skills for the parents is very easy. The word we have in Chicago for an equivalent of a high school degree is GED. But even if someone doesn't want to go that far, what we've found is we just need to make our schools, and especially our social service agencies, very welcoming for parents, having parents' activities, and most importantly, strengthening their role as parents. For example, in fragile families where there's a precarious situation or there's been trauma, rather than their therapist trying to fix the child, we will teach a mother how to teach calming activities to her child. And therefore, she's healing the child and strengthening her maternal bond. So I think I can talk best, most informed. Where my expertise is the programs we have.
This is great to know.
Parents,
I mean, this is really important, and we will need, your expertise. I would like to come back, for a longer time, to Morocco, yes, because there's a lot we can learn from you and benefit from your rich experience. Yes, I mean. Of course, there's a lot to say about all the programs that you have in Chicago and many places that I visited. Many organizations and associations that I actually went to, and even wanted to copy some of the programs there and implement them here in Morocco. I was not that successful, but I will do it one day for sure. Like after school matters, it's something that we do now.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it. We created it here, but then we found it in Chicago as well.
Yeah.
So it was a similar program that we have here. Well, if we will not talk more, but this, we want to go back, to the social work, and I would like, to have some few information about, if you don't mind, about the social services, social work. Does the government help in that financially? Or that's one. Number two, are the social workers recognized by the government and institutions, authorities, etc.
Sure.
And to what extent are they helped? Either by on the educational side, because we just introduced these as a module in our university, so people can actually graduate and have a diploma in social work and can be employed later on. We are working on the recognition of a social worker as a profession, so it can be it can benefit actually from all the advantages that the government could give. So how is it? These three elements. How are they? How do they function? In the United States.
We have a long history of professionals being respected in the social services. The psychologists work there, social workers work there, and a lot of paraprofessionals. So people who we call them youth workers or advocates, they all have different titles, but someone with just their bachelor's degree before they get the master's. We have a lot of people in that category. All of these people go through university the same way any other university student did. If they were lucky to have enough to have parents or earn a scholarship or a bourse, then they're not paying for university at all. Their parents might. But most of our students go through on financial aid. They're borrowing money on financial aid loans in order to pay to go to college for their degree. And of course, paying off that loan is a little bit easier if you have an MBA and you're going to get a very high-paying job in the business sector, as opposed to if you're getting, a respectable salary as a youth worker or a paraprofessional or a social worker or a psychologist in the social service sector. It would take someone longer. It would be harder to pay that off. The wonderful thing the U.S. government has done is they recognize governmental service. So if you are working for a public university or any public agency like the state of Illinois or the city of Chicago for the schools, or any nonprofit, the way student loans work is you can have most of your loans forgiven after working a certain number of years. So there's a real advantage with what's called loan forgiveness. So that's one way the government has helped us give relief to these people. Another way is this. It's very easy for someone in business to go to graduate school for free because businesses will send their employees to get an MBA or to go to law school. They'll pay for their school. That wasn't the case until the last 5 years or so, but some big changes have happened. In Chicago and Illinois in particular, Governor Pritzker has put a lot of money into mental health and the social services and given huge support from the state government. So the federal government helps by forgiving the loans. We have prioritized this, so not only have salaries risen, but the social service agencies have taken advantage of this money to say to their employee, if you want to go get your master's in social work, we'll pay for your graduate courses. So what we're seeing for the first time, and this is rather new, you'll see agencies that you visit on this visit who have employees who are getting their full-time employees and they're going for their degree part-time, but the employee is not paying for those classes, the employers are. So we're having the social services act more like businesses, and that's thanks to multiple sources of funding. Some of it is federal funding, some of it is city, some of it is state, and a lot of it is philanthropy and fundraising. Volunteering and giving money is in the DNA of America. So from an early age, Americans learn how to volunteer. My children could not graduate high school without several hundred hours of volunteer work required by their high schools to get a degree. That's how much we value it and bake it right in. We call that DNA, baking it into our culture. I mean, it's a required high school activity to be a volunteer. And most of that is in the social services. So it's one thing also that we do is really, really strengthen that involvement in fundraising and giving back, because we want social workers to have the same respect as other professions, and that took a couple things. Helping them pay off their loans, having the agencies pay for their graduate courses, and now raising their salaries.
That's really fantastic. I like the word, you said that voluntary work is the DNA.
It is.
Of America.
You know that. I know you know that.
Which is true.
I know you know that. Yeah.
And believe me, that's what I would like to have here in Morocco.
Yeah.
And I'm hovering for that, and I'm doing all I could, in order to inculcate, volunteerism in the mindset, of all Moroccans. And I start from the age of 3, to show them, how they can. And I see, in schools, for instance, they have this, the 60 hours, a year, before you graduate or before you pass from one class to one grade to another. Which is very important because, I like that DNA, because then you grow up and we say, it's in your blood.
Yes, exactly.
So, it's fantastic, That's one the thing that I insist on, and I would like, to implement, to spread I would say, and to inculcate into the minds, of our youth and of our children, so they grow up, with this spirit of helping others and working in this, and a great, enhancement, here. I mean, you're inciting the people actually to go to the field of social service, and social work, because all these encouragements that he talked about, raising the salaries, recognizing the services, paying for loan forgiveness. That's great, because we know how expensive the university is, and then and then the private sector, paying for your master, if you do, if you work in as a volunteer, or in that's really a lot of. Well, I always say that volunteerism is not that you pay from your own pockets, but you don't. You don't get paid or paid little, because that's what you want to do, because you want to help. And if you are paid, that will be a profession, and it'll be just as any job that you can you can get. Now I'm sure our youth will learn a lot from the experience they will have next month in Chicago. Could you tell us a little bit about the social work conference that you are organizing in June in Chicago?
We're very excited about it. We're working on it all the time, a lot, trying to pick the very best visits. It's, we always say we're all Chicago Sister Cities volunteers, but just like the youth volunteers, you always, if you go into any of these situations expecting to give more than you get, you're always shocked and surprised that you get so much more back. And I think that's what you're doing so wonderfully, starting your volunteers young, because they keep coming. Everyone I've met was involved with the Mazoz, or they were volunteering at a young age, or they're telling me they taught women French and it helped their back score rise and they're wonderful at the university. I think people don't even know how much they get back. And so all of us who are volunteers to prepare this for you are so excited. We're getting so much back even before you arrive from making the plans. But for the first 2 days of the conference, we will take you around and immerse you in our social service agencies. And we don't want a large group going into an agency. We don't want to bring 60 people in. It's too many people and it's too private. So we'll have different tracks that people can join. So we'll never take more than 20 or 30 people into each agency. And that's good for Casablanca, because you can see something and one of your colleagues, another delegate, can visit. So it allows the cities to visit more agencies. And then we'll have lunches. On Thursday after the visits, we're going to welcome you with a dignitary reception. So all of the consul generals, which we call our consular corps, are very connected to and linked to Chicago Sister Cities. And we get so much support from the various consulates in Chicago. So they all want to meet the delegates. And then we'll have dignitaries from the cities of Chicago and the leaders of the social services.
We say hello to our Honorary Consul General,
yes, of course,
Marilyn Diamond from here.
She will definitely,
yes,
be invited. And then Friday we do more site visits, and that is then usually the city committees want to spend time with you. So you will spend time with the Casablanca committee, all the people involved, because each city committee wants to meet the delegates. So the delegates don't get to rest. They're constantly meeting, but you didn't come there. This isn't a vacation. People come back a little, as you know, a little exhausted and tired from these delegations, because people are working, dusk to dawn, meeting people, networking, learning. And then the conference itself is on Saturday. And in the morning, each city will have one delegate present the best practices of that city, the innovations. The title of the conference this year is Innovations in the Social Services, because all of us had to overnight invent so much and do so much different during the pandemic that now, as we're emerging from the pandemic, by necessity, having to deliver services online or through technology or in different ways, we've got a whole new set of things we've all learned. And so people will be sharing their innovations. And then in the afternoon, the delegates will be divided into 5 different breakout rooms. So they'll go according to the specialty they most want to immerse in. We'll invite about 200 Chicagoans as attendees, and you can imagine with 300 plus agencies, and many of those agencies having multiple occasions, we have tens of thousands of workers. So it's going to be our most internationally minded leaders who want to join the conference, and they will go in the conference rooms with the delegates. Last time in 2017, we made a mistake. We had a speaker from each city who wanted to represent. We don't force cities. If they don't feel they have a passion for a topic, of course, they can come and listen. They don't have to. But we had all the cities invited be on the panel on a topic, but we didn't put a Chicago expert in. And we thought that was really a shame, because then, we weren't represented. We were so interested in empowering our guests, we forgot that we should share our best practice too. So we'll change that this time. The panels in each room will have a delegate from each city and someone from Chicago. And if I'm moderating a room, it won't be a time for speeches. People aren't going to prepare PowerPoints and stand up anymore. We want a dialogue. So if I'm the moderator, I'll ask the same question to each city in the room, and we'll encourage a dialogue and conversations to make those rooms more conversational. I think last time they were more presentation oriented. So I think, it was wonderful, but you learn how to make something better. We really want to encourage a dialogue in the afternoon. And then we've added something new. I don't know if I should promise this because we're still trying to raise the funds, but we're pretty good fundraisers. So let's announce it and just assume we're going to make it happen. We want to have a final reception after that large committee where not only all our delegates go to a reception, but all the social service professionals of Chicago, because they'll have spent all day with you. And I think it's very important that we give something back to the city of Chicago. We're giving them free CEUs. CEUs are the kind of learning credits the professionals in the United States need to get. A social work license is taken very seriously, and to keep your license, you have to be updated in education every few years. So we'll be giving people, the professions have acknowledged that this conference is so important. It counts as international training, but we want them to not just have that, we want them to have the personal relationships that we've benefited from. So we're going to have then a final reception, which will be a very large one, but it will allow the people in the profession, not just those of us who are lucky enough to be delegates on these committees, but allow everybody working in the profession to have a chance to go up and meet a delegate who inspired them and change business cards and maybe start a communication on WhatsApp text or email where they share a best practice. So we want to open the doors larger to even more connection.
Those meetings are very important because you get to meet different people in different fields, not only learn for what they're doing, but also probably start partnerships with them, and
exactly.
That's one of the aims of gatherings as such. Now you said that you forgot Chicago, you didn't give a presentation or whatever, but you learned from all the other countries. But the presentation you gave, it's showing all what you're doing in the city already, because people visited several centers, organizations.
We had shared,
So that was another way of sharing.
We did share
with facts and on the ground.
And, you're right.
So and so that was part of it. Besides the presentation, we didn't have time. Enough time, by the way. In the presentations, because it was limited.
We never do.
We had a lot to say and a lot to give.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know people enjoyed it very much, and that's very important. And it's the theme of this conference is very important. Innovation in the social work. It's you put it nicely. That after COVID, of course, we learned a lot of things, and today, we can converse with each other, virtually, and we can do a lot of interactions. I'm actually online, and because we know the difficulty, of course, and the finances, are very, I would say, limited, and especially for us working in the social work and social field, and we say that whatever we can spend in a trip, we can probably buy more computers for our community, for instance, as an example. So therefore we are so thankful to you for inviting our delegation, and I would like also to thank Julie Stagliano and Lisa Roberts for finding a way to extend the visit of our delegation, so they can stay beyond
it's wonderful.
The conference, in order to visit other centers and meet other people. Well, talk with you is so interesting, and we can go for hours, with you, and we learn a lot, and I am sure, our listeners, will learn a lot, about the social work in the U.S. You give a lot of examples and a lot of information, rich information that you shared with us. We are so thankful to you, and I cannot thank you enough, actually, first, for coming all the way here from Aix-en-Provence, and I salute your husband as well, here, because you accepted to do it on the last minute. Also, it was a short notice, and but you made it. I express our gratitude and appreciation to you for being with us and for sharing all your experiences and with us. Thank you so much once again. Last word, you.
Well, as Americans would say, coming right back at you with the thank you. I think I heard you earlier extend an invitation to return. So I haven't learned enough yet about Morocco. It's just wonderful experience, and I hope to be back soon.
Welcome anytime, and we're going to make it happen, pretty soon. Okay. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an extraordinary meeting and learning, I would say, session for all of us. So we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.